The world first met the Irwin family through the fearless energy of Steve Irwin. With his khaki shirt, endless enthusiasm, and deep love for animals, he didn't just educate people about wildlife, he made them fall in love with it. His passion built something bigger than a television career. It created a legacy of conservation, adventure, and family. For his children, that legacy was never just a story from the past. It became the path that shaped their lives. Among them was Robert Irwin, who was only a toddler when the world lost his father. Most people grow up hearing stories about their parents. Robert grew up hearing stories about a global icon. And yet, for him, those stories were also deeply personal. Memories shared by his mother, his sister, and everyone who had known his dad. His mother, Terry Irwin, made sure that the mission her husband began would continue. She dedicated herself to protecting wildlife and preserving the family's work at the zoo that Steve had built. Robert and his sister, Bindi Irwin, grew up surrounded by animals, cameras, and conservation work. For them, the zoo wasn't just a workplace, it was home. They bottle-fed baby kangaroos, they cleaned enclosures, they helped care for injured animals. And through it all, they carried the spirit of their father. Years later, Robert stepped onto a completely different stage, one filled with bright lights, glittering costumes, and cheering crowds. When he joined Dancing with the Stars, many people were curious. Could the young wildlife conservationist really master ballroom dancing? As it turned out, he could. Viewers quickly fell in love with his humor, his charm, and the genuine warmth he carried into every performance. Week after week, his confidence grew. And somewhere along the way, people began to realize something special. Robert wasn't just continuing his father's mission, he was creating his own identity. When he finally lifted the mirror ball trophy, the celebration felt like a full-circle moment. A decade earlier, his sister Bindi had won the same competition. Back then, Robert had been in the audience cheering her on. Now she and their mother were in the crowd watching him shine. It was a proud family moment. But success often brings unexpected challenges. After his victory, Robert's popularity grew rapidly. Invitations poured in from television producers and entertainment projects. His natural charisma made him a perfect fit for hosting shows and appearing on international programs. Suddenly, the young man who once spent most of his days feeding crocodiles and photographing wildlife was also stepping into the spotlight of global entertainment. For Robert, it wasn't about leaving conservation behind. He believed something else entirely. In his mind, every television appearance was a chance to inspire new audiences to care about wildlife. Every interview was another opportunity to talk about protecting animals and preserving nature. To him, fame was simply a bigger microphone. But inside the family circle, opinions about this new path began to differ. Bindi's husband, Chandler Powell, had become deeply involved in the daily work of running the zoo. Long days, early mornings, and endless responsibilities were part of the job. Keeping such a massive wildlife facility running smoothly takes constant dedication. And sometimes, when one person spends most of their days managing operations, while another is traveling the world for television projects, misunderstandings can happen. Friends close to the family have suggested that the situation created a quiet tension. On one side was the belief that the zoo needed as much hands-on help as possible. On the other side was the belief that global exposure could actually strengthen the family's conservation mission. Robert reportedly sees his public role as a powerful way to support the work his father started. By reaching millions of viewers through television and media, he hopes to inspire a new generation to care about wildlife. In his mind, the mission remains exactly the same: protect animals, educate the public, keep the spirit of his father alive. And yet, family relationships are rarely simple. When people care deeply about the same dream, they sometimes express that passion in different ways. For Bindi, the situation can feel emotional.
She grew up side by side with her younger brother, sharing the same childhood adventures and the same memories of their dad. Watching the people she loves navigate new challenges isn't easy. Still, the bond between them has always been strong. Those who know the family say that love has always been the foundation of everything the Irwins do. Even during stressful moments, their shared mission continues to bring them together. And Robert himself often speaks about how much he feels guided by his father's example. In interviews, he's described moments when he pauses and reflects on what his dad might have done in a similar situation. Sometimes, he says, it feels like a quiet sense of encouragement, a reminder to keep moving forward. That sense of connection has helped him navigate the whirlwind of attention that followed his dancing competition victory. More television opportunities began appearing, hosting offers, reality shows, even rumors about other entertainment projects.
It's exciting to watch Robert grow into a global personality while still carrying the adventurous spirit that made his father famous. His social media presence reflects that balance perfectly. One day, he might post a hilarious video wrangling a mischievous animal. The next day, he could be dressed in a suit, attending a glamorous event. It's an unusual combination, but somehow it works. Robert often approaches life with a playful sense of humor. Whether he's joking about dancing in sparkly costumes or telling funny stories about animals causing chaos behind the scenes, he knows how to keep people smiling. And that personality is exactly why audiences connect with him. He feels genuine, real, unfiltered. That authenticity reminds many fans of Steve Irwin himself. Of course, with greater visibility also comes greater curiosity. People naturally begin wondering what the future might hold for him. Will he continue building a career in television? Will he focus more on conservation work at the zoo? Or will he find a way to combine both worlds into something entirely new? For now, Robert seems determined to do exactly that, balance adventure, wildlife education, and entertainment in a way that honors the past while embracing the future. And if there's one thing the Irwin family has always proven, it's that their passion for wildlife is stronger than any temporary disagreement. Because at the heart of their story isn't fame, it isn't television, it isn't even the zoo, it's family. A family built around love for animals, respect for nature, and the belief that one person's passion can inspire millions. Robert's journey is still unfolding, and every new chapter adds another layer to the remarkable story his father began decades ago. Whether he's dancing under bright stage lights, rescuing animals in the Australian wilderness, or sharing laughs with fans around the world, he continues carrying that message forward. Protect wildlife, celebrate nature, and live life with fearless enthusiasm. If you enjoy stories about inspiring families, incredible wildlife adventures, and the journeys of people who continue to make a difference in the world, make sure to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. It's always exciting to hear what you think about these fascinating stories and the remarkable people behind them. As Robert's life continued moving at full speed, something interesting began to happen. The more time he spent in the spotlight, the more people around the world started rediscovering the story of his father. Interviews that were meant to focus on his dancing, television appearances, or future projects almost always returned to the same topic, his family and the legacy he grew up with. For Robert Irwin, that attention was both meaningful and complicated. He had spent his entire life hearing people talk about Steve Irwin as a legend. But to Robert, Steve was still simply Dad. And that difference shaped the way he approached everything. Whenever someone asked about his father, Robert rarely answered with grand speeches. Instead, he shared small personal memories, stories told by his mother, old family videos, and the lessons he believed his father would have wanted him to remember. He often joked that growing up in the Irwin family meant your childhood playground included crocodile enclosures and snake habitats. But beneath the humor was a deeper truth. Wildlife conservation wasn't something the family talked about once in a while. It was part of daily life.
At the heart of that world stood Terry Irwin, who had spent years guiding the family through both loss and growth. She had quietly become the steady force behind the scenes, managing responsibilities while encouraging her children to follow their passions. Terry had always believed in letting Robert and Bindi Irwin discover their own paths, and Robert's path was becoming more unpredictable than anyone expected. His success on Dancing with the Stars opened doors that few wildlife conservationists ever experience. Suddenly, producers, casting directors, and television networks were eager to work with him. It wasn't just about dancing anymore. They saw a personality who could entertain, educate, and connect with audiences of all ages. Robert handled the attention with his usual mix of excitement and humility. In interviews, he laughed about how strange it felt to swap muddy boots for polished shoes and ballroom outfits. But he also understood something important. Every new opportunity gave him a chance to talk about wildlife. Even during light-hearted television appearances, he found ways to slip conservation messages into the conversation. A funny story about an animal encounter might end with a reminder about protecting habitats. A joke about zoo life could turn into a discussion about endangered species. It was classic Irwin style. Entertain first, educate right after. Back home in Australia, daily life at the zoo continued as always. Animals still needed care every morning, enclosures still needed maintenance, visitors still arrived hoping to experience the magic of the wildlife sanctuary Steve had helped build.
Those responsibilities were very real. Chandler had gradually taken on a larger role helping manage the zoo's operations. His days were long and demanding, filled with everything from animal care planning to visitor logistics. He had grown deeply committed to the place and the mission it represented. Friends of the family often said Chandler approached the work with the same dedication that Steve once showed. He believed the zoo was more than a tourist destination. It was a living conservation project. Because of that, the difference in lifestyles sometimes created quiet misunderstandings. Robert's schedule often involved traveling, filming, or attending events. Chandler's schedule rarely left the zoo grounds. But even in moments when perspectives didn't perfectly match, both men were working toward the same goal, keeping the Irwin legacy alive. Bindi often found herself in the middle of those worlds. She understood the demands of running the zoo, but she also understood her brother's passion for reaching global audiences. After all, she had once stepped into the spotlight herself. When she competed on the same dance competition years earlier, she had also faced questions about balancing fame with conservation work. Her victory back then had brought enormous attention to the family's mission. Now, Robert was experiencing something similar, and through it all, Bindi remained incredibly proud of him. Their sibling bond had always been special. Growing up together in such an unusual environment created a closeness that few brothers and sisters ever share. They had faced both incredible adventures and heartbreaking moments side by side. That connection doesn't disappear easily. Meanwhile, Robert continued exploring ways to combine entertainment with wildlife advocacy. Television projects allowed him to introduce animals to audiences who might never visit Australia. Sometimes he brought stories from the zoo directly onto the screen. Other times he simply shared the excitement to working with wildlife. Fans loved the authenticity he brought to every appearance. He didn't try to act like a polished celebrity. Instead, he showed up exactly as he was, a young conservationist who happened to enjoy dancing, photography, and making people laugh. That honesty became one of his greatest strengths. Even when rumors about family disagreements surfaced in the media, Robert chose not to respond publicly. He preferred focusing on the work that mattered most to him. Caring for animals, inspiring people, and honoring his father's memory. In quieter moments, he still returned to the same question he had asked himself many times before. What would Dad want me to do? The answer, he believed, was simple. Follow your passion, be kind to wildlife, and never lose the joy of adventure.
That philosophy guided his decisions as he navigated a future filled with possibilities. Maybe he would continue hosting television programs. Maybe he would create documentaries about wildlife conservation. Maybe he would spend more time photographing nature, something he had always loved doing. Whatever direction his life took, one thing remained certain. The Irwin legacy wasn't just about one person. It was about a shared mission carried by an entire family. A mission built on courage, curiosity, and love for the natural world. And as Robert's journey continues to unfold, fans everywhere are watching with excitement, wondering what the next chapter will bring. Because if there's anything the Irwins have proven over the years, it's that their story is far from finished. New adventures are always waiting just around the corner. And sometimes, the most surprising journeys begin when someone decides to follow their heart, even when the path looks completely different from what anyone expected. If you've enjoyed hearing about this remarkable family and the incredible journey they continue to share with the world, feel free to share your thoughts below and join the conversation. Stories like this remind us that passion, family, and a love for nature can inspire people across the globe.